Salve discipuli. Welcome to lesson 33 grammar. Let me fix the view for you guys there. So much better now. Alright, so lesson 33 grammar focuses on some adjectives, specifically how you form and translate comparative and superlative adjectives. So what the heck are those? Well, let's start by looking at a comparative adjective. A comparative adjective is one that in English we would translate as more blank, whatever the adjective might be, or we could translate it adjective-er, right? Like smarter, prettier, things like this. Or we could also translate it rather, whatever the adjective is. And there's even one more option, and that is to, whatever the adjective is. So, for example, we might have more clever, smarter, rather cute, too brilliant. Okay, and obviously these all describe me. So, that is an example of what a comparative would sound like if we translated it from Latin to English. Now let's talk about a superlative adjective. That will look like this. Most whatever. Alright, most brilliant, most talented, whatever the case may be. Or another way to translate a superlative would be adjective est. Prettiest, fastest. That's all I can think of right now. It's good enough. And then there's one more possibility for a superlative. That would be very, whatever the adjective is. Alright, so very brilliant, very clever, very articulate, very hungry. These would all be examples of superlative adjectives. Okay, so there are your possible translations. So I'm kind of going about this backwards. When you see a Latin comparative, you're going to know you can translate it any of these ways. When you see a Latin superlative, you're going to know you can translate it any of these ways. So the next obvious question is, what does a comparative and what does a superlative look like in Latin? So let's do this. Let's start with a dictionary entry for a first and second declension adjective, amplus aum, that means large. And let's also simultaneously look at a third declension adjective, tristis, trista, which means sad. Alright, we know this first one is first and second declension because it has the us-a-um pattern. We know this one is third declension because it has the is in one of the endings. So, if we are making these comparative, what's going to happen is we're going to get our base from the second part. Okay, for example, I'll take AMPL. Okay, I dropped off the A. And then I will add eor. Or, for this word, I could take TRIST, drop off the E, and then add eor. Okay, this is your comparative form. Note the eor, the way I always remember this, eor is comparative because one of the ways to translate the comparative is more. Eor. More. Eor. More. Hey, those sound alike. So that will hopefully help you remember how the comparative works. So, amplus aum means large, so amplior means larger. Tristis means sad, so tristior means sadder. Alright, makes sense? Now realize, like I talked about up here, tristior could also mean rather sad. Alright, or amplior could mean too large. Those are all possibilities. Now, this comparative adjective, this amplior, this tristior, okay, it is really technically a third declension adjective. Okay, this is very important. Comparative adjectives are third declension adjectives. Alright, I'll say it again. Comparative adjectives are third declension adjectives. That means that amplior, that's a nominative form right there. If we saw its genitive, it would go amplioris. Notice the is ending like the genitive singular of the third declension. That should be pretty familiar to us by now. In the dative singular, ampliori. Technically, that's a long I. In the accusative, ampliorem, and so on. I don't want to get into every single ending right now because it would take us a little too long, but the basic idea is third declension. Chaos, is, e, m, and then the ablative is actually going to be the letter e, okay, as you would expect. Okay, so that's a bit. We're going to expand on this, but for now, realize that comparatives are third declension adjectives. Let's put an E in there. There you go, third declension adjectives. Okay? All right. Now, let's talk about superlatives. Superlatives are going to be similar to comparatives in some ways. You're going to form them from the base yet again. So I go to ampla here. This time, instead of adding eor, I add issimus. Okay? Amplissimus. So for trista, I go to the second part here, to drop off the e, and I'm going to add simus. Alright, tristissimus. So these are superlatives. Note the ism right in there. Ism right in there. That's going to tell you it's a superlative. So that can be translated most, or adjectivist, or very. So amplissimus could mean very large, or it could mean largest. Tristissimus right here could mean saddest or very sad. Alright, now this adjective, the superlative, is a first and second declension adjective. In other words, if you were to produce a dictionary entry for it, it would be amplissimus right? Us pattern. So first and second declension pattern. So our comparatives are third declension, our superlative is first and second. Alright, now we're going to see these in action and then we'll be done. So let's try a little sentence out here. Marcus est tristior quam Lucius. Alright, so here we have a sentence. Marcus is sadder than Lucius. So be aware, quam, when it follows or is near a comparative, quam is going to mean than. Marcus is sadder than Lucius. Alright, but what if we saw a sentence like this? Alright, notice we have tristior up here, which was sadder. Now we have tristiorem. Same word, but with that em, it's accusative case, modifying puerum right here. So I see a boy sadder than Lucius. Okay, that must be one sad boy. I see a boy sadder than Lucius. Alright, now I'm going to teach you one other thing about comparisons here. I'm going to teach you what is called the ablative of comparison. An ablative of comparison is a word that is placed in the ablative to express the idea than something. So, that previous sentence, I said puerum tristiorum quam Lucium. Instead of putting quam Lucium, I could simply put Lucio in the ablative, and it means the same thing. I see a boy sadder than Lucius. Okay? numbers 2 and 3 are the exact same sentence. They mean the same thing. All right, so let's look at just one example of a sentence with a superlative. What about this? Marcus est tristissimus. Notice the ism in here. That's telling you it's a superlative. So Marcus is the saddest. Or, remember our other options for translating a superlative. Marcus is very sad. Okay, so there's your basic concept of comparative and superlative adjectives. Remember once again that comparative adjectives are third declension and superlatives are first and second. We'll get practice with these tomorrow. Don't forget this new concept of the ablative of comparison. All right, wale te discipuli.